Jackson, a D.C. federal appeals court judge, and if confirmed, she would become the first black woman on the nation's highest court. Judge Jackson clerked for Justice Breyer during the 1999-2000 term, and she graduated from Harvard Law School. It was 2 years ago to this day at a CBS News Democratic presidential debate, our debate, that President Biden promised to nominate a black woman to the high court for the first time in history. And Jackson's confirmation would make history in other ways as well. With Clarence Thomas already on the court, it would be the first time 2 black justices would serve at the same time, and it would be the first time that 4 women would serve on the court at the same time, with Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Amy Coney Barrett, and Jackson. Let's bring in Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. And Nancy, this is a campaign promise fulfilled.
It is, and President Biden said he was looking for someone with exceptional credentials, and that's what he's getting in Ketanji Brown Jackson, Nora, a federal judge for nearly a decade, the former vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, an attorney in private practice for years, and perhaps most crucially, a former public defender, just like the man who nominated her, President Biden. She would be the first person to bring that kind of experience, a criminal defense attorney background, since Thurgood Marshall.
All right, Nancy Cordes, now let's hear from the President of the United States.
Today, as we watch freedom and liberty under attack abroad, I'm here to fulfill my responsibilities under the Constitution to preserve freedom and liberty here in the United States of America. And it's my honor to introduce to the country a daughter of former public school teachers, a proven consensus builder, an accomplished lawyer, a distinguished jurist, one of the nation's most prestigious courts. My nominee for the United States Supreme Court is Judge Ketanji Jackson. You know, 4 weeks ago, when a member of the court, a friend of mine, we used to work together in the Senate, Justice Stephen Breyer, announced his retirement, I said then, choosing someone to serve on the United States Supreme Court is one of the most serious constitutional responsibility a president has, and I mean it. I promised the process would be rigorous, that I would select a nominee worthy of Justice Breyer's legacy of excellence and decency, someone extremely qualified, with a brilliant legal mind, with the utmost character and integrity, which are equally as important. And that I would bring this decision, my perspective as a lawyer, former constitutional law professor, chairman of the Judiciary Committee for many, many years, and I'm almost reluctant to say it, someone who's presided over more Supreme Court nominations than almost anyone living today, which makes me 28 years old. I started doing it when I was 32. And who has devoted much of my career to thinking about the Constitution and the role of the Supreme Court. With that perspective, I carefully studied the record of candidates. I've invited senators of both political parties to offer their ideas and points of view, and I've met with a number of them. As a result, because I truly respect not only the consent, I know they give consent, but it says that the Constitution says advice and consent. And I sought the advice of Democrats and Republicans. I've consulted with leading legal scholars and lawyers, and I've been fortunate to have the advice of the Vice President Harris, and I mean this sincerely, an exceptional lawyer, a former Attorney General in California, and a former member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And during this process, I look for someone who, like Justice Breyer, has a pragmatic understanding that the law must work for the American people. Someone who has historical perspective to understand that the Constitution is a resilient charter of liberty. Someone with the wisdom to appreciate that the Constitution protects certain inalienable rights, rights that fall within the most fundamental personal freedoms that our society recognizes. In the end, someone with extraordinary character will bring to the Supreme Court an independent mind, uncompromising integrity, and with a strong moral compass and the courage to stand up for what she thinks is right. For too long, our government, our courts, haven't looked like America. And I believe it's time that we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation, with a nominee of extraordinary qualifications. And that we inspire all young people to believe that they can one day serve their country at the highest level. I've admired these traits of pragmatism, historical perspective, wisdom, character in the jurists nominated by Republican presidents as well as Democratic presidents. And today, I'm pleased to introduce to the American people a candidate who continues in this great tradition. Judge Jackson grew up in Miami, Florida. And by the way, the mayor of Miami, a Republican, endorsed you. I thought that was interesting. Her parents grew up with segregation, but never gave up hope that their children would enjoy the true promise of America. Her parents graduated from historic black colleges and became public school teachers. Her mom, a principal. Her dad, a teacher who later went back to school and became a lawyer representing that very school district, that school board. Judge Jackson describes finding her love for the law from an apartment complex at the University of Miami where her dad was attending law school. She'd draw in her coloring book at the dining room table next to her dad's law books. She grew up to be a star student, elected mayor of her junior high school, and president of her high school class, where she was a standout. She was a standout in the speech and debate team. And it was after a debate tournament that took place at Harvard when she was in high school that she believed she could one day be a student there. There were those who told her she shouldn't set her sights too high, but she refused to accept limits others set for her. She did go on to Harvard undergraduate school, where she graduated magna cum laude. She went to attend Harvard Law School, where she was a top student and editor of the prestigious Law Review. Then she applied for a highly competitive and coveted clerkship on the United States Supreme Court, and she was selected. The justice who thought she was worthy of this high honor was a young lawyer, was none other than Justice Stephen Breyer, whose seat I'm nominating her to fill. Not only did she learn about being a judge from Justice Breyer himself, she saw the great rigor through which Justice Breyer approached his work. She learned from his willingness to work with colleagues with different viewpoints, critical qualities, in my view, for any Supreme Court justice. Now, years later, she steps up to fill Justice Breyer's place in the court with a uniquely accomplished and wide-ranging background. She served both in public service as a federal public defender, and in private law practice as an accomplished lawyer and with a prestigious law firm. If confirmed, she will join Justice Sotomayor as the only other member of the United States Supreme Court who has experience as a trial court judge, a critical qualification in my view, and once again, following the footsteps of her mentor, Justice Breyer, she'd become the only member of the court who previously served as a member of the United States Sentencing Commission. And she brings additional perspective to the court as well. She comes from a family of law enforcement, with her brother and uncles having served as police officers. That's one reason I expect by the Fraternal Order of Police, the national organization today, said, and I quote, "There's little doubt she has the temperament, the intellect, and the legal experience and family background have earned disappointment." And they went on to say, they're confident she will, quote, "approach her future cases with an open mind and treat issues related to law enforcement fairly and justly." Incredibly, Judge Jackson has already been confirmed by the United States Senate 3 times. First, to serve on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, a bipartisan independent commission I helped design to reduce the unwarranted disparities in sentencing and promote transparency and fairness in the criminal justice system. On the commission, Judge Jackson was known for working with Democrats and Republicans to find common ground on critical issues. Second, she was confirmed by the United States Senate with bipartisan support on the federal district court to administer justice with the special rigors and fairness that come with presiding over trials. And third, she was confirmed with bipartisan Senate vote to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, considered the second most powerful court behind the Supreme Court itself. In the court she once argued cases before as a distinguished advocate. And when Judge Jackson was nominated to the Circuit Court, one of his distinguished retired members, Judge Thomas Griffith, a former general counsel of Brigham Young University and a George Bush appointee to the court, said he backed her enthusiastically. hailing her exemplary legal career in both public and private practice. And he went on to say, her careful approach as a trial court judge. Judge Jackson's service on the District Circuit Court of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals is another superb qualification for service on the Supreme Court. 3 of the current Supreme Court justices also served as the D.C. Circuit judges, where Judge Jackson now serves. Her opinions are always carefully reasoned, tethered to precedent, and demonstrate respect for how the law impacts everyday people. It doesn't mean she puts her thumb on the scale of justice one way or the other, but she understands the broader impact of her decisions. Whether it's cases addressing the rights of workers or government service, she cares about making sure that our democracy works for the American people. She listens. She looks people in the eye, lawyers, defendants, victims, and families. And she strives to ensure that everyone understands why she made a decision, what the law is, and what it means to them. She strives to be fair, to get it right, to do justice. That's something all of us should remember, and it's something I've thought about throughout this process. As a matter of fact, I thought about it walking over here with her. One floor below, we have several displays celebrating Black History Month. One of them includes the judicial oath of office taken and signed by Justice Thurgood Marshall himself, an oath that will be once again administered to a distinguished American who will help write the next chapter in the history of the journey of America, a journey that Judge Jackson will take with her family. I hope I don't embarrass him, but her husband, Patrick, a surgeon, doctor. Patrick, stand up, let him see who you are. There you go. They met when they were undergraduate students at Harvard, and he's a distinguished cancer surgeon at Georgetown. And like so many women in this country, Judge Jackson is a working mom. She had her eldest child, Talia, when she was a private lawyer in practice. She had her second child, Layla, when she served on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. Stand up, Layla. I asked Layla when I showed her through the office whether she'd like to be president. She looked, no. There's other things. Anyway, Layla, you're welcome to be here. Thank you so much. And welcome your sister who's up in school in Rhode Island now. I have children and grandchildren. Let me tell you, Judge, you're always a mom. That's not going to change no matter what you're doing. Whether you're on the Supreme Court or not. And I've always had a deep respect for the Supreme Court and judiciary as a co-equal branch of the government. I mean it. The court is equally as important as the presidency or the Congress. It's co-equal. So today, I'm pleased to nominate Judge Jackson, who will bring extraordinary qualifications, deep experience and intellect, and a rigorous judicial record to the court. Judge Jackson deserves to be confirmed as the next Justice of the Supreme Court. I've met with the chairman and ranking members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Chuck Grassley, and my hope is that they will move promptly, and I know they'll move fairly. Judge Jackson, congratulations, and the podium is yours. Let me pull this out for you. Where is it? There you go. You got it? But okay. See, presidents can't do much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am truly humbled by the extraordinary honor of this nomination, and I am especially grateful for the care that you have taken in discharging your constitutional duty in service of our democracy with all that is going on in the world today. I also offer my sincerest thanks to you as well, Madam Vice President, for your invaluable role in this nomination process. I must begin these very brief remarks by thanking God for delivering me to this point in my professional journey. My life has been blessed beyond measure, and I do know that one can only come this far by faith. Among my many blessings, and indeed the very first, is the fact that I was born in this great country. The United States of America is the greatest beacon of hope and democracy the world has ever known. I was also blessed from my early days to have had a supportive and loving family. My mother and father, who have been married for 54 years, are at their home in Florida right now, and I know that they could not be more proud. It was my father who started me on this path when I was a child, as the president mentioned. My father made the fateful decision to transition from his job as a public high school history teacher and go to law school. Some of my earliest memories are of him sitting at the kitchen table, reading his law books. I watched him study, and he became my first professional role model. My mother, who was also a public high school teacher, provided invaluable support in those early days, working full-time to enable my father's career transition while also guiding and inspiring 4-year-old me. My only sibling, my brother Catanji, came along half a decade later, and I'm so proud of all that he's accomplished. After graduating from Howard University, he became a police officer and a detective on some of the toughest streets in the inner city of Baltimore. After that, he enlisted in the Army, serving 2 tours of duty in the Middle East. I believe that he was following the example set by my uncles who are in law enforcement. You may have read that I have one uncle who got caught up in the drug trade and received a life sentence. That is true. But law enforcement also runs in my family. In addition to my brother, I had 2 uncles who served decades as police officers, one of whom became the police chief in my hometown of Miami, Florida. I am standing here today by the grace of God as testament to the love and support that I've received from my family. I have also been blessed with many dear friends, colleagues, mentors, law clerks. I could not possibly name all of the people to whom I owe great thanks. But I must mention specifically the 3 brilliant jurists for whom I had the privilege of serving as a law clerk at the outset of my legal career. U.S. District Judge Patty Saris in Massachusetts, U.S. Court of Appeals Judge Bruce Selya in Rhode Island, and last but certainly not least, Associate Justice Stephen Breyer of the Supreme Court of the United States. Justice Breyer, in particular, not only gave me the greatest job that any young lawyer could ever hope to have, but he also exemplified every day, in every way, that a Supreme Court justice can perform at the highest level of skill and integrity while also being guided by civility, grace, pragmatism, and generosity of spirit. Justice Breyer, the members of the Senate will decide if I fill your seat, but please know that I could never fill your shoes. To my dear family, those who are here with me now and those who are watching from home, I am forever indebted to you for your love and support. To my beloved husband, Patrick, thank you for being my rock today and every day for these past 26 years. I love you. To my daughters, Talia and Layla, you are the light of my life. Please know that whatever title I may hold or whatever job I may have, I will still be your mom. That will never change. There are so many other people I would love to be able to address and to thank, but time is short, so let me end by sharing an interesting coincidence that has actually meant a great deal to me over the years. As it happens, I share a birthday with the first Black woman ever to be appointed as a federal judge, the Honorable Constance Baker Motley. We were born exactly 49 years to the day apart. Today, I proudly stand on Judge Motley's shoulders, sharing not only her birthday, but also her steadfast and courageous commitment to equal justice under law. Judge Motley's life and career has been a true inspiration to me as I have pursued this professional path. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, I can only hope that my life and career, my love of this country and the Constitution, and my commitment to upholding the rule of law and the sacred principles upon which this great nation was founded will inspire future generations of Americans. Thank you again, Mr. President, for this extraordinary honor.
I forgot to introduce the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and the second gentleman. That seems strange to say that, but the second one, Doug Emhoff. They're both here as well, so thank you. Thank you all.
And this is one of the longest legacy lasting events that a president can make, is the appointment of a Supreme Court justice, and has now written himself into the history books by nominating the first black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. No matter what your politics, you couldn't help but be moved by what just happened at the White House, and certainly hearing about Judge Jackson's life, her parents, their accomplishments, and everything. Let's bring in CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. And Jan, you know the court so well. You know many of those who serve on the district court and others. Describe her qualifications and what she's done as a jurist.
Well, I think you could see in the remarks why she's always been the front runner for this position. I mean, not only does she have those stellar academic and legal qualifications, Harvard Law, Supreme Court clerk, a federal defender, private practice, the Sentencing Commission, she also brings that compelling life story that is said to be rooted really in the African-American experience. And that will bring a different, and many say much needed, perspective to this United States Supreme Court. As a judge on the district court and the appeals court, her colleagues that I've talked to said that she is methodical, careful, well-prepared, always well-prepared. She works very hard, and she has a firm view of the law. So they do not think that she's going to get up to the Supreme Court like a lot of new justices do and feel a little like overwhelmed by the gravity of the place. They believe that she will get to that court and say, this is what I think the law is, let's get to work.
And that experience, that real life experience that you noted, she would be the first public defender, former public defender, and of course the first defense lawyer since Thurgood Marshall. Let's bring in Senator Cory Booker, who joins us from the state of New Jersey. And Senator, I know last year that you called Judge Jackson's work as a public defender, quote, noble. Tell us more about what you think of this day and what you know about her qualifications.
Well, I just have to say it's hard to watch that without getting really emotional. I'm African American. I grew up in traditions that are very strong in their matriarchal leadership, and to see this barrier be broken, it is so profound. 115 Supreme Court justices in the history of America, 108 of them have been white men. Even though there's been generations of qualified black women, this is an extraordinary moment. This is an extraordinary moment.
Do you think she will receive bipartisan support?
Well, she was received bipartisan support 3 times. When she was nominated to serve on the Sentencing Commission, she was confirmed unanimously. When she was nominated to the D.C. Circuit Court, she was confirmed in a bipartisan manner. And when she was, the D.C. District Court, she was confirmed in a bipartisan manner. And when she was confirmed for the D.C. Circuit Court, she received bipartisan support. So I am hopeful that she can. She is immensely qualified. She has a range of experiences, many of which have never been before seen on the Supreme Court. As somebody who started my legal career working in clinics representing indigent clients, though that work sears your spirit and it empowers your heart with empathy, and to have that experience on the Supreme Court is invaluable to this nation, where most people, talking to a guy who ran a municipal court, most people can't afford lawyers. It's such important work and experience.
Senator Booker, stay with us. Some of our viewers will now rejoin CBS programming, but our coverage of President Biden's Supreme Court pick will continue on CBS News Streaming. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington. And there's much more to talk about as President Biden officially nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court. Let's now go to our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes. And Nancy, I know that you were talking to your sources all last night and this morning as we learned that the president had settled on his pick. What do we know about what went into this choice?
Well, you know, as Jan pointed out, Ketanji Brown Jackson really was the front runner from the very beginning. Yes, there were several other qualified individuals who got a very serious look, but this is someone who President Biden knew because he just nominated her last year to serve on the D.C. Circuit Court, and he chose her for that court for a reason. The D.C. Circuit Court is often viewed as a springboard to the Supreme Court. She's far from the first person to take that step. The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg served on the same court. The current Chief Justice, John Roberts, served in the D.C. Circuit. And so she was placed on that court to give her more visibility because she's someone who was not just seen as a front runner in this process, this choice, but back in 2015, Norah, when President Obama chose Merrick Garland to be his nominee, she was on the very short list that he considered. So she's someone who has been on the minds of leaders here in Washington for quite some time, and it wasn't surprising when she rose to the top this time around.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. Let's bring in senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. And Ed, I mean, there were so many interesting things that happened today in terms of dates. You know, her birthday, of course, and then today, exactly 2 years from when President Biden, running for president at our CBS News debate in South Carolina, made this pledge that he would pick a black woman.
Yeah, and the White House was so eager to sort of use this as a symmetrical moment and say, remember, I told you right when I was at my lowest political point, when I was trying to climb back and reclaim this nomination, that I would do this. I've done it, and I'm doing it today. And that image of him flanked by two firsts. The first black female vice president, the first black woman nominated to the Supreme Court, is an image that's going to be indelible to so many Americans, but fulfills a huge promise he made to Jim Clyburn, the South Carolina congressman, who'd said to him, look, if you want my support, if you want to win this state, you've got to make some kind of a pledge like this. And he tucked it into the debate as you guys were questioning him, and he said it towards the end, by the way, if I win the presidency, I'll do this. And it helped. It helped because in that state, an overwhelming African-American population, women who make up most of that voting bloc, heard that and went to the polls and rewarded him.
Of course, you cover politics so closely, as has been noted and Senator Booker noted. She's been confirmed by the Senate 3 times. Just recently, there were 3 Republicans who voted for her for the D.C. Circuit. What does it look like now?
Well, this is when the pretzel twisting begins, because just because I vote for you for a lower court doesn't mean I'm going to vote for you if you're on the Supreme Court, because that's a completely different job. And that's what we're starting to see already today from the 3 Republicans who voted for her. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Susan Collins of Maine, and Lisa Murkowski. Murkowski saying a little while ago, previously voting for an individual to a lower court does not signal how I will vote for a Supreme Court justice. They're all going to want to meet with her. A lot of Republicans insisting those meetings must occur in person, which is kind of needling a White House that has been a little more COVID cautious than senators and members of Congress. And, you know, we'll see where it goes. But to look at the history that was committed today and the indelible image that creates, the symbolism of it, it will be hard, beyond process reasons, for Republicans to really object to someone like her.
Senator Booker of New Jersey is still with us. And Senator Booker, I mean, what do you know about how quickly this process will go in the United States Senate?
Well, I think that there should be opportunities for a really good process. I think that's very important. I thought Amy Coney Barrett was rushed, and I do think that Senator Durbin, who I've talked to extensively over the last 24 to 48 hours, wants to have a process that moves as expeditiously as possible, that isn't full of obstruction or unnecessary delays. but that's thorough and really gets the Senate an opportunity to do their constitutional duty.
Let's bring in Nicole Killian. She is CBS News congressional correspondent. And Nicole, I know you've been speaking to your sources. What are you learning today about how she will be received and how this process will go?
Well, to add to Senator Booker's point there, certainly the Senate Judiciary Committee is poised to move quickly on this. Chairman Durbin has made clear that the committee is going to start work on this immediately. And I am told by several sources that we could start seeing some of those courtesy calls with the nominee as soon as next week. Of course, these are these big photo ops that we in the media are used to, where we see that nominee come up here to the Hill to meet face to face with these senators, and as Ed mentioned, many of them have made clear that they would like to do that in person. Chairman Durbin has also made clear that ideally he would like to see this confirmation process completed by the Easter recess. Whether or not that happens remains to be determined, but Senator Schumer reiterating in his statement that he expects Judge Jackson to get a prompt hearing.
Nicole Killian, thank you. Let's bring in our chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford, who covers the Supreme Court for us. Some of the other things about Judge Jackson: she's 51 years old. That would make her the second youngest justice on the Supreme Court. That matters, right?
Absolutely, and they certainly, presidents and their vetting teams, pay close attention to that when they're making that pick, because that person will be on that Supreme Court potentially for 30, 40 years, who knows, long after the president that nominated him has left town and is dead. And they will be deciding issues we cannot even contemplate right now. I mean, already, if you think about what the court has got on the agenda for next term, they've just started adding cases for next term. This would be her first as a justice. Already, they've got a voting rights case. They have affirmative action in college admissions and whether you can consider race in admissions. They also have a big same-sex marriage, gay rights case, whether businesses can refuse to, say, design a wedding website for a same-sex couple. 3 hot-button issues, some of the most controversial issues, of our times, and that's just the beginning for next year. You've got to think about, what about 10 years from now and 20 years from now? She will be deciding those cases and shaping the law for generations.
But at the same time, if she is confirmed, she will not change the ideological makeup of the court. Conservatives will still control it. It's very interesting. I spoke with someone who is very close to this process several weeks ago, who said that while looking through those who were up for this position, one of the important things was their dissents. Because Judge Brown, if she becomes Justice Brown, will be dissenting, and those dissents will become history-making precedent for many years to come.
And that is absolutely right. Some of the great justices have changed the law beginning with their dissents by sowing those seeds that then get picked up down the road by other justices. So the great dissenters. So when you think about what role that Judge Jackson will have, or Justice Jackson will have on the Supreme Court, sure, she's going to be dissenting. But there's a phrase that a new justice makes a new court. When new justices come onto the court of 9, they can cause other justices to rethink their positions, to change alliances. We saw that when Justice Thomas joined the court, who is also the black justice. Will be 2 black justices on the court now. His firm views, conservative views, caused Justice O'Connor to move more to the left. So you have to think about how she could affect the court, not just as a vote, but as a group of 9. And that will continue to evolve over the years as well. And what her colleagues tell me on the lower courts is that she is an incredibly engaging, warm person, just nice. The people who work with her on the Sentencing Commission have nothing but praise for how she's so nice and easy to get along with. But she also has a sharp edge. She believes she believes in her views on the law, and she is not shy about expressing it. So she's not going to be a pushover.
Jan, you're so good on this. You always add such the important nuance to all of this, which is that the judge or justice brings not only their professional expertise, but their personality as well. And that has been one of the most fun things to watch about the Supreme Court.
And the justice that she's replacing, her boss, Stephen Breyer, was known for his willingness to walk down the hall and talk to people and pick up the phone and say, what do you think about this case? And listen. And as a result, he had a tremendous influence on that Supreme Court beyond his vote. He really got Justice O'Connor, who is a moderate conservative, to moderate her views. She started voting more with the liberals toward the end of her career. So she has worked with him for a year. She sees how he operates. It'll be interesting to see if her style is also that kind of try to build consensus or reach out across the aisle.
And I should note her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson. Brown is her maiden name. She goes by Jackson now, and we can call her Judge Jackson.
For now.
For now, that's right.
We don't know how soon it will be when Justice Jackson.
That's right. I want to bring in Nancy Cordes, because Nancy, I noticed on your Twitter feed some of your reporting that you had spoken with some of Judge Jackson's closest friends about just what kind of person she is.
Right, and she's close to a group of women who she met her freshman year, the first week of her freshman year in college. They all roomed together at Harvard. They all ended up going on to Harvard Law School, and they are close to this day. And what they say about her really tracks with what you heard from Jan a moment ago. They say she's the first person to pick up the phone, the first person to be there if they need her for any reason, if they need a friend. One friend said she had breast cancer a few years ago. She told just a small group of friends she never expected Judge Jackson to be able to be there for her because she's so busy. Judge Jackson showed up at her doorstep in New Jersey to be at her side. They say that she is such a strong writer and was her freshman year in college that she actually helped all of them become better writers, and that she was marked for greatness from the beginning, that everyone who interacted with her knew from a very young age that she was going places. And in fact, even in her high school yearbook, she said that she wanted to become a judge someday.
Well, not many of us, what we write in our yearbook turns out to be true. So good for so good for Judge Jackson. I want to ask you about Ukraine in just a minute, but I want to stay on the topic of Judge Jackson, and I want to bring back in Ed O'Keefe here, because Ed, go through to the three senators that have just Republican senators, I should say, that have just most recently voted for her, and what they're saying today.
Well, all of them essentially are doing what senators do in this instance and say, let me wait and see. Let me talk to them. Let me review their writings.
Senator Murkowski.
Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who have been rather receptive compared to their Republican colleagues in voting for Biden nominees. But all of them essentially saying today, this is a different situation. This merits further review, and we'll get back to you on what I will do. Graham, most interesting because he campaigned openly for another potential pick, this Judge Michelle Childs, who's still up for a higher federal court here in Washington, saying he would have voted for her. There was a lot of there was a push around her because of the fact that she's from South Carolina, that she had a equally professional and experienced judicial temperament and whatnot, but she wasn't the pick, and so Graham can kind of now go and say, well, you didn't go with the one I wanted, so now I got to give this person a slightly deeper dive, and we'll see. And
Nancy, what's expected to be some of the flashpoints that they will challenge her on, that some of the Republicans on the judiciary, like Cruz and Hawley, will Jan?
They're going to go after her like they always do. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys up there in that Senate Judiciary Committee. So they're going to use their time to make speeches about what they think the law should be, and she'll get 3 words in if she's lucky, because she's going to say, I can't answer how I would rule on this case because it might prejudice me. The case might come before me. So you're going to have all the hot button issues that we've talked about. There's a huge abortion case at the Supreme Court right now that could overturn Roe versus Wade. We don't know when these hearings are going to start, but let's say the court has just handed down that decision. Abortion is going to be front and center at the Supreme Court, at the confirmation hearing. So it's going to be whatever is the most controversial issues that the senators can get the most airtime with to, play to their constituents back home. That's generally how these hearings work. But, she is, as we saw her and as Nancy talked about, and the kind of person that she is, yes, it's true. Supreme Court is a different position. And the lower courts that she's been serving on, they're applying the law as the Supreme Court has said it is. On the Supreme Court, she's going to be saying what that law is. So that is different. But it's in their interest to have her go up there and meet as many senators as possible, because every person that I've talked to, and Nancy, you heard what Nancy's hearing from her friends, every person I've talked to, Republican, conservative, liberal, they all say she is engaging, nice, warm. So she should do all right with those U.S. senators.
She also preempted a potential line of inquiry by owning her own family history there, pointing out that one of her uncles sentenced under a 3 strikes law for nonviolent cocaine possession was in the system, but then pointing out she's got relatives who are police officers and police chiefs.
Well, I want to make one more point about that, because we were talking about the other, and the 2 other contenders were highly qualified. Leandra Kruger on the California Supreme Court, and then Michelle Childs, the federal district judge in South Carolina. And obviously Jim Clyburn had really pushed for Childs, saying that we need someone who's not in the Ivy League. Right. There's now only one justice that's this non-Ivy Leaguer. But if you listen to her compelling life story, I think, and the way she started the speech by, thanking God and saying that faith got her there and speaking of her family, she doesn't talk like someone you think of that went to Harvard. Right there, she does not sound like the ivory tower there.
Mm-hmm. And Nicole covers Congress so closely. And Nicole, talk about what you're learning, how she will meet with senators, when this process will begin, who you expect will issue those tough questions that Jan was talking about.
Yeah, well, just to follow up, too, along the conversation that you all have been having, I mean, one thing that's been clear in talking to Democrats and Republicans that I have heard from both sides of the aisle is that they don't want this to be another Brett Kavanaugh. So when you do hear many Republicans saying, look, I'm open to listening, to meeting with her, I think that on both sides of the aisle, there is a desire to have a civil process to the best extent possible, whether they ultimately support a judge or eventually Justice Jackson if she is confirmed. So from that standpoint, I think that hopefully the process will be somewhat civil or more civil than other processes that we have seen in the past. I think one notable difference is that, Republicans have also been very clear about sticking with the tradition of the process. As we know, usually these nominations can take, on average, about 40 days. In the case of Amy Coney Barrett, her confirmation process was closer to a month, around 27 days. And so we heard from the outset some Democrats saying, well, they think that is a fair timetable. So I do think you will see some push and pull as far as the process and how it plays out and how long it should play out. Although, as I pointed out earlier, Chairman Durbin, who heads the Judiciary Committee, ideally would like to do this by Easter. But again, we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, Nicole, thank you so much. Let's go back to Nancy Cordes as promised. And Nancy, there have been a number of developments on the Ukraine front. Walk us through what you're learning about sanctions, additional punishment for Vladimir Putin and the Russian government.
Right, and the president has been so focused on the Ukraine situation that actually the timing of this Supreme Court announcement, Nora, was really in complete flux until this morning. But he spoke to Ukrainian President Zelensky today. He also spoke with NATO leaders, and it appears that world leaders are becoming more and more comfortable by the day with imposing extremely punishing sanctions on Russia for this unprovoked attack, starting with the EU, which we're now learning has agreed to sanction President Putin himself, as well as his foreign minister, Lavrov. And we're learning that it appears that the U.S., that the White House is getting more comfortable with the idea of sanctioning Putin as well, and that countries like Germany and